Okay, so I'm Maisie Harris. I'm the Development Group Manager for PureCloud Analytics UI and PureCloud Reporting. And today I'm going to talk to you about reverse engineering PureCloud reports and how you can create your own reports from the PureCloud API. And I'm sorry there's no memes. And there's also no live demo because the internet has been spotty and I have trust issues. So bear with me. So currently PureCloud has 16 built-in reports that cross 19 different areas like queues, agent status, things like that. And in general, they cover the basic contact center's needs. But there might be a certain need for a more advanced contact center or a contact center with a different type of business that we haven't considered. So we want to give you a way to kind of build your own custom report and get what you want. So all of our reports are used a lot, but I'm going to focus on our top reports, which are queue, agent, and interaction-centric. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through what these reports look like, how you query the data, what that data actually looks like, and then some enhancements you can make so that you can customize your report. And a lot of these also correspond to a UI, so queue performance, for example, agent performance. So if you're used to looking at the UIs instead, you can think of that here. So I'm going to start with the queue metrics daily report, which answers the questions, how are my queues performing each day? And you can go into the PureCloud UI as a supervisor right now, and you pick your queues and your media types and your time period, and then you can run that on a schedule. And this is what you get. And I apologize if it's a little blurry, but you get, for each media type and queue combination, you get a daily value for each of these statistics. So for this, we asked the question, for my customer service and sales queues that I manage, give me a daily report of all chat data for the month of May. To get this, we're going to hit the conversation aggregates query endpoint. And there are a couple essentials we're going to put in. So we said we want a daily report. So we're going to do our granularity of P1D. We're also going to group by our QID. And we're going to add a filter at the bottom for the chat that we want. And then this clause in the middle says, let me know if you have either of my two queues. Optionally, we can do a couple other things to help you get a better report. One of those is supplying a time zone. So by default, all of our reports use time zones, none of our UIs do. So that's a little inconsistent. But the idea is that if you have a report run in a certain location, you may want it to still be formatted for where your business's location is. We can also choose to align the granularity with the interval so that regardless of the midnight to midnight idea, we start the day from the start of your interval time. And this is what that data would look like. If you were in the last presentation, this is all going to look really familiar, but you get a grouping with your media type and queue for any of those that existed, and then you're going to get an interval object for each day with all of the metrics that happen in those corresponding time periods. And so to just go over how you get a couple of those stats for the report, we'll start with offered count. So there were 497 offered, and to get that, we simply find the in offered metric, and we pull the count off of that. To get average speed of answer, we then look for the t-answer metric, and we calculate the average from the sum over the counts. Pretty straightforward. That's all in milliseconds, though. You're going to want to format for readability because users take milliseconds. We also have service level percentage, where we look for O service level, and we grab the ratio value, which is already calculated for us, or if you want, for some reason, you can calculate numerator over denominator as well. But now what if I actually want a media type breakdown for every queue for the entire month of May? So I would remove my granularity and I'd remove my queue filters. I would then add a group by for my QID and media type, and I'm requesting for the month of May, and I would get any group or any media type with chat and queue combinations that had data for that period. Okay, now what if I want just offered answers and abandons for those two queues? And I want them only when the online help skill was used. So then we're going to add in an additional predicate saying I want this skill ID. So we add a requested routing skill ID. And then we also, in the bottom, and it's cut off a little bit, we send in our metrics that we want. So in this case, N offered, T answered, and T abandoned. So now we'll move to the queue metrics interval report, and it's very similar, but it gives you data on how your queues are performing across 30-minute intervals, which is the standard interface for the PureCloud app. And again, we configure it the same. It's very straightforward: queues, media type, and time period. But now we get a report that's broken down by 30-minute periods instead of day. So for this, we asked for my customer service and sales queues, I wanted data for every 30 minutes for my chats on May 16th. So again, I apologize, my slides got cut off, but we set in an interval for 1 day of May 16th. We set our granularity to PT 30M, that's going to give us 30-minute buckets. And then we still send in the queues and media type filters as we did before. So instead of getting a daily data object, we're going to get data objects for every 30 minutes where there was data during that 1 day. We could also decide that for that time period, I also want only data where the DNS was 317.222.2222. And so we can add in an additional filter for the DNS value. We could say I want only this one for this full format of DNS. And so only interactions that had this DNS and this QID will be returned. So then an agent metrics report is kind of similar to the queues. It's how are my agents performing each day. Again, you select your users and your media type and your time period. And then this is just like the Q metrics daily report, but instead it's for a user and media type combination. So to get this report, we're still going to have the conversation aggregates query endpoint, but now we're going to group by user ID because we care about user ID instead of Q account, and we're going to swap out our QIDs for our user IDs. And this is going to give you a response that should look almost identical to the Q metrics daily response, but instead we have it for a user. And not all metrics are available for queues and users, but this should give you everything you need for that report.
In this one, if you have agents, can you specify a queue to look for the agent list?
So you want, for a specific queue, you want to know what agents work?
Now, I want to run an agent metrics report, but every time I take somebody in and out of a queue, or I hire or fire somebody, I have to go back into the report and edit the user.
So that would probably be something better for a custom report, where every time you wanted to run, you would fetch the user IDs for that queue, and then you would send those in to the report. It's unfortunate. We could, in theory, add in...
You could do a group of or a filter by queue.
Well, if you filter by queue, though, that's going to filter your data by that queue, too.
No, just in this, we have the queue information, because each of these stats are based on an agent in a queue. You could do a filter by queue.
Do you follow?
Yeah, I'm not.
To get that list of users, you could do it by a list of all the stats and list all of the users by queue.
I think so long as where this can get hairy sometimes is if there's sometimes people do weird pull agents in and out of queues dynamically, and then the membership. That's where, in the case of there's only one sort of evolving set of agents within a single queue, that is true. In the cases where there's sort of blended sets of agents in a queue, because this ask has come up, and that gets complicated. But yeah, I don't think right now we have fixed user IDs for it and don't represent it as like a live set.
You also have, if you filter by queue, if an agent was in the queue but didn't take any calls, they wouldn't have any data, so they wouldn't show up. They'd only show up if there was some data to view.
For video, that's really.
Yeah, I have thought about requesting an idea about reporting groups. So if you could group agents into a work group or something, then request the data based on a group of people.
Or like separate from the queue, just a
just
a queue.
Or maybe by division. If we could filter by division, that would work as well.
Yeah.
But we could place agents in divisions and report.
And I will say we're constantly trying to find new ways to help you group your users into smaller sets, so that is definitely something on our minds. So we don't have.
Why is it that days are P1D, but times are PT? 30 and 40 and...
That was actually that was not our fault. It's actually an ISO standard.
Yeah, that's the ISO standard which we follow.
Okay.
I have to look it up every time.
Okay, so for this report, one of the most important statistics is the interactions count, which is something we don't really label anywhere else as interactions. We usually label as handled, and so this would be taking the T-handle metric and pulling the count of that. So in this case, 65 interactions were handled in this day for this agent. For total talk, we can look at the T-talk complete metric, which Mike talked about the complete metrics in the last session. And you're just going to grab the sum and again format it because we only want the more formats. And just like with the Q reports, we can do the same types of modifications. You can change your granularity or add or remove media types and users, change your interval. And then one of the best things that you can do to get a better idea of what specifically is happening is to add additional predicates. So the most common ones that we see used for agent data are cues, directions, and skills. So now we're going to look at the user status detail report, which is a little bit different because it's our first one that's not conversation aggregate based. So this is a report of when our agents are changing status. So you'll notice here that there's no media type because it's not at a conversation level and status is media type agnostic. And what you get is a detailed list of every status that the user was in and when they went in and out of that status. So to do this, we hit the user's details query endpoint. And for this report, we say we specifically want system status changes for a user. So for this one, we wanted the week of May 13th, so we put in that interval. We send in a user filter, which has our user ID, and again, you can supply multiple user IDs. But we also said we only want system status data, so we're going to put in a presence filter, and we're going to say we want to make sure that the system presence dimension exists. We send in a sort order because this is detailed data, and so you can get newest to oldest, oldest to newest. And we also provide paging data to get a particular chunk of data, and it might be necessary for a large interval or for a very active agent to have to go in a few pages deep. So what you're going to get here looks a lot different from the aggregate response. You're going to see primary presence data, and you see start and end time, the system presence, and then the presence ID as well for that user. And you get a record of every time that person had a system presence. So I'm going to take a row of that and show you kind of how we get to the report. So start time is obviously pulling the start time off of the interaction and formatting it, same with end time. Primary status is pulled from the system presence value, so that's something like offline, available. And then secondary status is oftentimes the same as the primary presence, but it pulls based on the organization presence ID, and that's the idea that you could be at meal, but your secondary status is lunch. And then we also calculate the duration, which is the total time between start and end time, so that you know how long that person was in that status. But what if I actually want to report with the system status changes and the routing status changes? So then I'm going to remove that check that said system presence had to exist. And what I'm going to get is two separate lists of data. So I'm going to get a detailed list of all of my primary presences, but also a detailed list of my routing status, and they're separate so you can parse them separately. But what if I only want to know when he went not responding because I really want to track that for my agents? Well, then I'm going to supply a routing status filter, and I'm going to do it on the routing status dimension, and I'm going to send in the value of not responding. And that's going to give me only routing status data, and it's only going to give me the entries where the routing status is not responding. So in this case, for this week, Dennis went not responding 4 times. You can also say I want to know when he went not responding or available, so I can see different statuses that I care about if I don't care about everything. And so we take that last query where we have the not responding filter, and then we add in a presence filter on the system presence dimension, and we send in the value of available. You could also do a filter on an organizational presence.
Do any of these do summation or total?
So we have aggregation, so you could see like how many times that user went into that status. Is that what you're referring to? Okay, so you got a little bit ahead of me. Okay, so then with that last one, we see we get our 2 detailed lists and we only get available non-responding. But now I want to see the most used routing status and the 2 most used system statuses. So then we can do a presence aggregation on the system presence, and we use the term frequency type, and we send in size 2, and that means tell me the top 2 system presences. We could also send in a routing status aggregation with term frequency, the routing status of 1, and that means the most used routing status. So I'm going to get my normal detailed data, but then I'm also going to get, in the aggregation section, you can see that my top used routing status is interacting, and I went in it 10 times. And then my 2 top used system presences are on and available, and I think it was 105 and 104 times. So you could do that for whatever size you wanted to get, and that would give you the count of that. And then you could also, if you wanted times, you could also look for the T agent routing status metrics or things like that. So the agent activity summary export is another one that's kind of status focused. We configure it with the user and the time period, but we get a report broken down by day, and we give the login and logout times, as well as the times in the online off queue, on queue, and then in our ACD statuses, which are interacting, idle, not responding. So to do this, we use the user aggregates query endpoint, and we're going to supply our group by user ID, our interval of, in this case, the week of May 13, our granularity of P1 day, because this is a daily report, and we're going to supply our user ID again. So this response is going to give you, this is kind of what I was talking about with the time and status metrics. It's going to give you, for each day, T system presence, T organizational presence, for example, with a qualifier, so you can see that there were 24 hours spent in the offline system presence on that day, for example. It's also going to come with a mapping at the top, so that if you have secondary statuses, you can take one of the UID qualifiers and figure out what system presence it corresponds to, so that you don't have to remember that. So for online in this case, we're going to look for the T system presence metric, except where the qualifier is offline. And we're just going to sum those up. For total ACD, we're going to look at T agent routing status for all of the ACD qualifiers, which are again interacting, idle, and not responding. So in this case, interacting and idle, and we sum that up. And this is a simulated org with some really bad data, so 24 hours in ACD time here. And then for not responding, we look for T agent routing status with a not responding qualifier, and we just grab the sum off of that and format that. So that we can also see the not responding percentage, and there's different percentages in the report, but that's not responding time over total ACD time. So in this case, 0.1% of the day was spent in not responding. And finally, the interaction detail report, where you can see a list of all of the users' completed interactions over time. So in the UI, we go back to selecting the user and our media type and our time period. And what we're going to get is a detailed list of all of the interactions. And this, for a large time period, can be a huge set of data. So hopefully you would fine-tune this a little bit so that you don't get 1 month of data in a PDF, because how do you use that? So for this, we're going to hit the conversation details query endpoint. So say I want the interactions for Dennis Terrell on the week of May 13th. I'm going to send in my interval of the week of May 13th. I'm going to add a conversation filter looking for that conversation end exists, because I don't want to know anything that's in progress, because that data may change at some point. I'm also going to add in segment filters for the interact segment type and the user ID, and I want those both to match. And the idea is that I want to know only when Dennis actually interacted, because he might have been alerted to an interaction and not actually picked it up.
Just a query, on the date filter, is it using the start time then?
It is using the conversation start. So for something like an email, you may have an email that has lasted for a few weeks, and so you may have a little bit of trouble finding that in there. But yes, we do anchor at the conversation start for this. Again, we're going to add in our paging data, and as Mike said, you want to tune your queries a little bit so that you're not going really deep. Hopefully you don't have to page very deep. I believe the page size limit right now is 100, but no one wants to page through more than a couple hundred interactions. So this is what it's going to look like, and again, if you were in the last session, you've seen all of this before, but it's a list of conversation objects. So there's data at the conversation, participant, and session and segment level, as well as the metrics like in connected here. And so this is meant to provide a detailed accounting of everything that happened in the interaction. So in this case, type is media type, and be mindful that you can have multiple media types on a single interaction, like a call with a callback. To get the user, we're going to look for any internal participant, which is a participant with the purpose of agent or user. And we're going to pull off the user ID, and then we're going to have to resolve that user ID into the user's name. For the remote field, we're going to look for an external participant. So we look for the purpose of customer or external. And sometimes we're going to get a participant name, like in this case, DDRNA. Other times you're not going to get that though, and you're going to have to go a little further and try to find an email address, a phone number, or something else to identify the person. The date time is, as we said, the conversation start. And then the duration is the difference between conversation and conversation start. And in the case of this report, it will always exist because we only look for ended interactions. For the queue, we're going to look for the ACD participant, which means the purpose of ACD. And again, we might get a participant name with the queue name, or we might have to dig into a segment and grab a queue ID and resolve that from one of our routing endpoints. And then for queue weight, we're going to look for every ACD participant. Then we're going to grab all the interact segments off of that participant, and we're going to find the total length of all of those segments. So in this case, 3 segments. For direction, we pull that off at the session level of each conversation and for each participant throughout the conversation. And you can have inbound, outbound, or a mix of inbound and outbound. And then for wrap-up code, we're going to look for those internal participants again with the purpose of agent or user. We're going to look for a segment type of wrap-up, and we're going to get a wrap-up code ID, which again we're going to have to resolve into a name. So we can enhance this query to get all sorts of types of data, and most supervisors in the call center for PureCloud are used to what we call the interaction search view, which has all sorts of conversation filters, quality filters, dialer filters, OptoCloud filters, and flow filters. So if we want to say, give me all interactions with this particular DNS, which for those of you around Indy is the Indianapolis weather line that we like to spam, we add in a segment filter for the DNS, and then the value is the DNS. It doesn't have to be a complete DNS. It helps you if you know the complete DNS that you can apply it and only get interactions you actually care about. But this is going to return all conversations that had that DNS. We can also filter by queue, where we send in a segment filter of the queue ID. And we can keep swapping out segment filters. So, for example, we change the dimension to direction and the value to inbound, and that's going to give me only inbound interactions. Or the wrap-up code, we can send in that as a segment filter, and that's going to show me only overdue payment interactions. So that I can, if I have some wrap-up codes I know I need to follow up on regularly, I can create a report based on a specific wrap-up code. Then we can also filter by some of the existence of metrics. So, for example, transfer. We can send in a conversation filter with the type of metric and the metric in transfer, checking that it exists. And this is going to return only interactions that were transferred. Another use case for this would be sending in t-abandon and looking for all of my abandoned interactions. We can also do web survey filters for anyone who uses web survey. So I can say I only want interactions where there is a finished survey because I want to go and look at those and see how we were scored. So we send in a survey filters object with the survey status dimension and the value of finished. And that's going to narrow down my list. Similarly, we can do quality evaluation filters. So, for example, I want any interaction that was evaluated below 50%. I can put in an evaluation filter object on the O total score metric, and then I provide a range. In this case, LTE means less than or equal to 50. So this is going to tell me any interactions where the evaluation score was less than or equal to 50%. So I hope that this has kind of made it clear that our analytics APIs are very powerful, and for pretty much any way you want to view your data, there is a way to take one of our built-in reports and kind of filter it down to your specific needs. So you can leverage all of our endpoints and our filters, and they're very well documented in the Developer Center, but also check out the Analytics Query Builder if you haven't. It's a huge help, and you can use this to start generating any of the reports that you want. And again, if you need help or want to, if you have no experience with the PureCloud API, or you are, you've been doing it a while but you want to level up, feel free to use one of our 3 levels of Genesis Professional Services to help you with that. So that is it. Are there any questions?
Does your query builder generate that output that we use in your API?
The request? Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Generating entire body just
and return.
Yeah, and if you haven't looked at it, if you go in and you say, I want a QID filter, it's going to provide you, you're logged in as your user, it's going to provide you a drop-down list of result Q names too, but it's going to then put a QID in your filter. So it
then
makes
I can
it...
export that and then use it
Yep.
in my dashboard, so I don't have to be
It makes it...
instrumenting that JSON.
Yeah.
So that they start there.
Yeah. That's how most of our internal people start too, and then you get to where it's second nature. But yeah, it is a great tool.
Are you going to add out-of-the-box reporting, or just have everybody do the report?
So the focus that we're trying to take, we do still build. We've built a couple reports in the last year. As
You've also deprecated 3.
I'll point you to my PM. So we have been building a lot of what we call dynamic views, and the idea is that we can present different dimensions of data and give you a bunch of filter options, and then give you, right now you can get a CSV export of them, but we are going to get PDF export, which is basically going to say, I'm going to configure my view, and I'm going to click a button, and I'm going to get a custom report. We're also going to do scheduling reports. So our hope is that we can get you to buy into the idea that you can get a custom report from our view with a one-time setup, and then not need all of those canned reports.
What about emailing the first page?
That is also in the plan with the scheduling. Yep.
On the time zone filters, I've noticed some oddities that sometimes when you select the time zone, the input time used is based on the time zone. And on other API queries, the input time is UTC, but the output data is in the time zone.
It comes up.
I don't know if that's...
It's so on the back end, everything's stored in UTC. So if you specify the time zone in your query, ultimately that's sort of a projection to present the data transformed back to that time zone for you. So you can find intervals on what data.
Yeah, there seems to be one of the APIs, and I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head, but it presents the data correctly, but the query is in UTC.
Gotcha. Yeah, if there is any.
Should report that.
Anything
because I found
coming,
that, I couldn't find anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can find it, we'd certainly like to know.
Yeah. It's in the UK, half the time we don't notice because UTC is UK time for 6 months of the year. It's only when the time zone changes that someone notices that you're into daylight savings, and someone goes, my data's off.
Yeah, I would say we definitely want more information about that.
Yeah, I'll check in with the developer that's looking at it and raise a case.
Are you talking about the interval, the time zone or the interval that doesn't match the time zone that you can put?
So if you, one of them, if you put Europe, London in the time zone and your daylight savings time, the query if it was midnight to midnight, isn't, it's actually 1 a.m. to 1 a.m. as the data output. So the query was running UTC, but the output was in the correct time.
Right, so you should be able to include the time zone. So the time zone specifier affects the results, and in the input your interval, normally you put a T in there, and that indicates UTC. So you can convert that timestamp to your local time zone. You just have to include the correct time zone specifier with it. And
So the time zone was specified.
right, but not so the time zone property affects the response.
The
But the
time zone?
interval,
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes
that
time.
includes the time zone, because the Z in there indicates UTC time. So if you put a different time zone in that interval, so that one's cut off with the.
I won't move the thing. Yeah. So, wait, I thought we were talking. So some of what Tim's alluding to is up there in the interval in the very top row, if you squint real hard, you'll see a Z.
Yeah.
You were able to, you might see the 0, or in this case, you could continue to write after that like an offset to like, -4.
Yeah.
So that's your input, and then the time zone field, as Tim said, is the projection to affect what your results look like.
So
the
in the
interval is what's
install, if
being.
you want something that's managing daylight savings, can you put a time zone specifically rather than a -4? Because
Yes.
it's in the UK it's going to be 0 or -1, or in somewhere it's going to be -6 or -7 in Denver or something.
Yeah, I mean, you could get all sorts of weird with it where, you query it in one time zone and then project it into another. And so that's, and the interval notation, I know the granularity is a weird notation. The interval notation is also a weird ISO notation. So you can further add to that to put your time zone and whether it's daylight savings friendly or not, EST, EDT.
So the interval format is full ISO, so you can add your time zone in there.
Correct.
And I will plug our dynamic views and exports and say that they will just, they do send in a time zone for where your client is at the time, and they will just kind of solve the daily savings time problem for you. So you won't have to do anything with that.
If your developer has follow-up questions about that, definitely have them post on the developer forum, and we can get right out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we all monitor that pretty frequently, and if we don't, then someone yells at us.
Yeah, Tim finds us.
Yes?
So participant data may be probably going to be available to the API endpoint at some point. Will we be able to set the interaction detail to also show so that participant data is presumably is the same columns?
So right now you won't get that with the current. We are working on an export of basically a new interactions detail report, and that will have full access to the super secret jobs tool. So then we could expose it there.
And all the messaging apps that are coming in, are they all going to be the same messaging, or are they going to be able to be broken down by message?
So media type is message, but then there's a message type so that you can say I only want line and SMS, or you can see the breakdown data. So you can still get full breakdown of that.
What about the performance views?
The performance views, if you select the message media type or the all media type, then there is a message type filter. So by default it selects all of the message types, but it's just some checkboxes and you can go in and pick just the ones you want. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you guys.
Thank you.